Hello, my dear guys. Many of my students from different corners have requested me to give a brief lecture on a child miseducated, a child lost. Much has been said and much has been written about this topic, yet my students have requested me from different corners to speak or to say a few words or a few sentences on this particular topic. However, first of all, I cannot but recollect the romantic poet William Wordsworth's Ode to Immortality. It is the poet in which the poet says unambiguously and in a straightforward style that a child comes from heaven to its home here, that is purgatory, but the child cannot forget all the qualities of heavenly glamour or heaven because he is or she is directly from God. However, we may come to the conclusion that every child bears the touch of God. Yet, there is a discrimination. However, I don't want to make my lecture lengthy, my introduction lengthy. I start my lecture like food, clothes, and shelter. Education is the part and parcel of human life. It is obvious that without education, a man cannot develop. A child is born to learn about his environment, ecological environment, social and political environment, without which his mental as well as physical development is quite impossible. The all-round development of a child is possible according to Swami Vivekananda. It is actually education is the manifestation of the perfection already in a man. So education is a process that helps a child to learn about his ancestors, heritage, culture, and method of living. It is not a goal but a journey. Every child must be well educated, and that is why the Right to Education Act 2009 was passed by the Parliament in India. And with this purpose, the government of India has introduced midday meal, free and compulsory education for the children. The purpose to prevent school dropouts. No child should be deprived of elementary education. Now, let us come to another point. That is the second point. What does education do? what is the function of education? Actually, in the true sense of the term, when India was under British rule, it was the school children who were trained by the patriot teachers, and they did not hesitate to sacrifice their lives for the sake of their motherland, for the sake of their country. The children were not miseducated at that time. Their only and one ambition was not to secure a job, but to free their motherland for the foreign rule. Clear? The children were not miseducated, and that is why they could realize the importance of freedom and the enfranchisement of senses. Enfranchisement of senses means from senses. Freedom of senses from any kind of bondage. Economic bondage, political bondage, social bondage, etc. Education includes the duties and responsibilities of the children towards parents, family members, neighbors, and other members of society. It is their duty and responsibility. Education teaches them. Okay? Now, I want to emphasize on the fact that education drags out the children from narrowness of mind, from superstition, from casteism, religion, and creedism. So every child who is the future citizen of the country must be given proper education, not the literal education. Not the literal education. Bookish knowledge has no utilitarian value in a human knowledge and on a human life. That is why I want to mean that education is the perfection, education is the manifestation of the perfection already in a man. So, I want to say again that education makes the children the true citizen of the country. The true citizens of the country, and without proper education, a child may turn into an antisocial element. Okay, in spite of having literal education. So, literal education has no value in human life. It develops his mental state. It develops his mind and soul. So, in spite of having education, literal education, a child who is the future citizen of the country may turn into an antisocial element. And even I emphasize on the fact that a child who is the future citizen of the country, who is going to be a statesman, a political leader, must be honest. Without honesty, the country will never develop. If the children were properly educated, social violence, political vandalism, murder, separatist movements, economic exploitation would not occur repeatedly in our country. Every 14th November, Children's Day is observed with gorgeousness, with pomp and luster, as the day is the birthday of India's first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. And you know that UN also observes or celebrates International Children's Day, yet we see that actually when International Education Day is celebrated or observed, or India's Children's Day is observed, we see that sweets, flowers, chocolates, oranges, etc. are distributed among the children. But that is not all. It is actually a function. It does not mean that all children are going to be the future citizens of the country. However, we see that antisocial elements grow up very rapidly in spite of having education. But the quack treatment of a deep-seated disease, yields no result. Quack treatment of a deep-seated disease yields no result. Even today, we see rag pickers on the heaps of garbage. Early in the morning, on the winter mornings, we can see the rag pickers on the heaps of garbages, child laborers in the tea stalls, in the factories and restaurants. It is shocking. It is really very shocking that about 40% children of India in our country after the independence could not be brought under education policy. Only for the sharp division of two sections. One is haves and the other is have-nots. On the winter mornings, the children are seen shiver in cold, having torn clothes and shabby dress. Eradication of poverty, creating awareness, and abolishing gender discrimination can solve this problem. Last but not least, appointment of good teachers. Appointment of good teachers at the primary level can educate the children properly, and then they will not lose themselves in the world of nothing. Last but not least, again I want to emphasize on the fact that a country can develop if a child is properly educated. And it is very amusing to conjecture that only 1 or 2 or 3 or 4% of budget is spent for child education. Only mid-day meal, only buying some cycles or giving laptops or mobile phones cannot solve this problem. Character building is the only panacea to make a child properly educated. Otherwise, all this will go in vain. Thanking all of you. Good night. If my lecture comes to your benefit for any purpose, for your exam purpose, for any purpose, all the students are being requested to subscribe my channel, to like, to comment and to share. Thanking all of you. Good night. Stay safe.